Hi, I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to be able to speak to you today. Maybe you could just begin with a brief introduction to this incredible, unsettling, and very original film. What can audiences expect when they watch Nocebo?
Thanks very much. Well, I mean, the story is about a fashion designer who's suffering from a mysterious tick-related illness until help comes along in the form of a Filipino nanny who uses traditional folk healing to kind of unravel what is actually wrong with Ava Green's character, Christine. I would say, I'd probably say nothing, to be honest. Just to go and watch the movie. I mean, it's more of a thriller than a horror, I'd say. And it delves into some socio-political kind of aspects, as well as the supernatural and the psychological, and is gripping, thrilling, wonderful movie, and let's go watch it.
And of course, there is kind of a bit of a tradition of, the idea of the nanny and how that's played upon in sort of thrillers, horrors. And, you could go one way or the other. Is it the nanny that's stepping into sort of danger, or is it the nanny that's bringing something else with her? I mean, to what extent were you kind of playing on perhaps some of those tropes that we've seen before? And where did you get the idea for your particular story?
Well, we were playing into people's prejudices, I suppose, in a way, with this story. And I mean, the origin of the story came from just a general interest Garrett, Shanley, and I had in placebos and nocebos, and we started doing a lot of research into that area. It's quite fascinating. A placebo can make you feel better, even if there's nothing kind of medically proven to show that it can cure disease or alleviate pain and stuff, but it does actually work. And nocebos, on the other hand, are like their evil twin that can actually cause pain, cause harm, cause illness. They can even cause death in some extreme circumstances. And we'd read about that. There's this case of the Hmong refugees after the Vietnam War who went to the US. And under their kind of belief system, if they start having these sleep paralysis nightmares where they're visited by a spirit that presses down on their chest, they'd go to a shaman, and the shaman would do a ritual, and the nightmares would stop. But because these refugees had been taken in by the US, by sort of Christian groups, and they were atomized across the country, they started having, and they'd gone through terrible trauma during the war. They started having these nightmares, particularly men in their sort of 40s. And because there was no shaman to visit, they started dying one by one across about a 10, 15-year period. About 40 of them died. And this medical anthropologist did a study on it. And her hypothesis was that they died because they believed they were going to die. But anyway, that sort of brought us into the research. And I mean, Ireland has a strong tradition of folk healing when we were pagan, and that kind of got pushed aside with the arrival of Christianity. And the Philippines had a similar history where they had these sort of powerful women who were revered in society, who were the Babylon. And with the arrival of the Spanish and being colonized by Spain, they were sort of demonized and made into, wicked witches. And a lot of them were actually eradicated. So our research led us to the Philippines, where they still have a strong tradition in certain parts of folk healing, particularly in Cebu and Siquijor. The island of Cebu is pretty large, but Siquijor is a smaller island beside it, which is kind of dubbed the Island of the Witches, where they, there's a lot of kind of shamans there and witch doctors. So Garrett and I went there to do research, and we met a lot of, practitioners of Kulam, which is the sort of dark magic, as well as folk healers, faith healers, and yeah, there's quite a wide variety of different practices that are all kind of based in the same sort of nature-based belief system. And we met tribal chiefs of the Ati and Bajau tribe, and it was fascinating. And we both had this in the film. There's a scene where Diana does this bulu bulu, which is blowing into a jar of water, and the water becomes dirty. If you're sick, and the water, they kind of keep on pouring out the dirty water and replacing it with clean water, and they keep on blowing through a straw into the water until it runs clear, and then you're cured. And because there's a visual connection there, it's obviously, well, I mean, to me, it seems like it's the placebo effect in full effect. You can see your body being cleansed, therefore you feel better. And those queues of people for this treatment, they all felt great afterwards. So that's how the story started, really. And then once we kind of had a good narrative together, we wanted to do it as a Filipino co-production, and I went to Macau with Brunella, the producer, to a co-production market in China, Macau, and we pitched it and met Epic Media, Bianca and Brad, who came on as our co-producers there, and then we brought on a kind of consultant writer called Ara Chaudhary to help us with the scenes that were set there, and we got some financing from Screen Ireland, as well as the Film Development Council of the Philippines. So yeah, it was quite an organic sort of process, going from just a kind of interest in that area to then doing a Irish Filipino co-production. And obviously one of the biggest exports from the Philippines is actually foreign domestic workers. So there was always an element of the nanny, and how the Philippines has come to a point where they send nannies go abroad to work, and then they're minding the children of wealthy Westerners, and they send money back home for people to raise their children. So there's this kind of weird cycle that's come out of a sort of neo-colonial capitalist society. So, I mean, Garrett and I were just creating these links between, or drawing links between all these various aspects, and that all led into the narrative.
And of course, that was really fascinating. This incredible cast. I mean, Mark Strong and Ava Green. I guess maybe I haven't seen enough of her films. I've definitely myself not seen her in a role like this. And I guess kind of, seeing her unravel on screen to this extraordinary extent, and then Chai playing the nanny. So how did you cast your film, and how did you work with them to achieve your vision?
I mean, I thought Ava would be wonderful in the role. And, she's very, she always seems to commit to her roles, and she can look amazing, and she doesn't mind looking haggard as well. Like she'll go there. So I thought, on paper, she'd be great. Obviously, she wants to do it. We offered her the role. She'd seen my previous film, Vivarium, luckily, and she really liked it. So she was interested in reading when the script came in. She read it pretty quickly, and she really liked the character and also the themes that we're exploring in the story. And so she came on board first, and then Chai's role was a little harder to cast because, authenticity in this film was always going to be very important. And I wanted a character playing Diana to be from Cebu and speak Cebuano, which is a dialect in the Philippines. So we were reasonably limited, but Bianca, our co-producer in the Philippines, had worked with Chai before, and she recommended like maybe 10 or 15 actors for the role. And we saw a bunch of auditions, self-tape auditions, and the Chai's came in. It was just perfect. She was able to kind of keep you on the back foot. She did this thing in her self-tape where she'd she'd say something that could be interpreted as a little bit creepy, but then she'd give a lovely big warm smile, which would then disarm you again. You think, oh no, she's nice. Then she'd say something else that was a bit off, and then she'd smile again. So it was a very kind of interesting balance. And overall, we were trying to do with the story this sort of placebo nocebo with the actual structure of the story too, where you start believing one thing is good and then do a bit of a switcheroo midway through. So while we were shooting, we didn't really have a huge amount of time to kind of rehearse the scenes. So we did most of that, and it was during COVID as well, and it was a total nightmare trying to get Chai into the country. And I mean, the first scene that she did with Ava Green is her at the door when she's coming to the house, and she was literally just out of quarantine. She just arrived on set and did that scene. So most of the kind of rehearsals we did were across Zoom, and we just had a lot of conversations and talked about it a lot. So both of all of the actors kind of really understood what the story was about, the tone of the story, the themes of the story, and then we were able to sort of hit the ground running because it was quite a tight schedule. So I got lucky, I guess, as well with a great cast.
And I think just the look and feel of the film as well, it's like the visuals are so striking, and kind of the real contrast that you create between, sort of the, kind of middle class, slightly upper class, sort of perfectly seeming house that they live in. And then you're, cutting to the flashbacks in the Philippines. So what was the importance of those locations and the look and feel of the film, especially as, you start to realize there's something kind of sinister, kind of simmering underneath?
Yeah, well, I mean, the location and production design were kind of connected to that colonialist style. Like even the color palette was based on British colonial colors, the kind of rich burgundies and grayish greens, and so we there was also these scenes in the script that were very specific to a massive staircase, and there were certain aspects of, like, there's a scene where Diana is carrying her suitcase up the stairs and Christine is wearing her heels, just walking up without helping her, that were written in to involve a large house. But also then the scenes that were set in the Philippines were quite, we knew we wanted to go there, but be quite minimal in the events that we showed there, to create that contrast, and also contrast in color, because we didn't want to do it sort of, you see a lot of movies where they'll cut to, they'll be in London and it'll be kind of bluish, and then they'll go to Mexico and everything's yellow or something. We wanted to keep the grades and the contrast and saturation and everything even across the board, but use the colors that were in camera to sort of create that contrast. And the Philippines is just naturally more vibrant in their use, in the use of color that people use, lots of greens and pinks and turquoise. Whereas the location that we shot, it was actually in Dublin, but we were still shooting Dublin for London. It's much more red brick and grays and grayish greens and blues. So that was the intention with design anyway. Oh, you're on mute.
Just got a couple more minutes, so just very quickly, what do you hope people take away? And I guess it does feel like there's quite a few films at the moment that seem to kind of use these sort of thriller-esque settings to kind of explore, you know, the anxieties that we perhaps feel, you know, and in this case, kind of that Western exploitative guilt, and how sort of like using thriller or horror tropes, maybe it's a way of kind of making those anxieties kind of tangible, making them manifest. And so maybe there's something cathartic, but there's also something deeply unsettling about watching a film like this.
Yeah, I mean, I find genre is often a very interesting way into those subject matters, and also a way of seeing stuff from a different angle to just straight up drama. You know, it allows you to get under the skin a little bit more. And you know, with the films we've been making, if people want to just take them as a thriller, as a pure entertainment, they can. But it's always nice if the film lives on in your subconscious afterwards for a while, and you can really think about it, and you can think about the connections that were there, and the layers that are in the film. Yeah, I mean, I hope that's our aim really, is that the film stays with you afterwards for a while. And
just very quickly, your next film, do you know what you'll do?
Yeah, I'm working on a film called Goliath. It's a dystopian near future film about creating monsters in order to start wars and steal natural resources. So it's quite different, but it's again, it's dealing with larger themes in an exciting way.
Amazing. Well, can't wait to see that one as well. And thank you so much for sharing all that with us, and can't wait for everyone else to have the opportunity to see Nocebo. Thanks so much.